Hi, I'm Stephanie Metcalf and I'm with the Johnson County Research and Extension Master Food Program. Thanks for joining us today. We're coming to you via Zoom. We really miss you guys. We can't wait to interact with you, and we want you to know we're thinking about you and hope you're staying safe. So today my friend Ann is going to join me a little bit later, and we're going to make taco pizza for you. And Ann's going to make fruit salsa and cinnamon chips. So before we get started, I'm sure you all remember the hand washing. Washing hands is especially good this time of year, so make sure you're washing your hands often and drying them well. So I know we've talked about hamburger before and ground beef and E. coli, so I'm sure some of you probably remember the sign of hamburger being done is that it is no longer pink, it will be brown. So you want to make sure all of the hamburger is brown in your skillet as you're cooking it. And as you will see here, I don't see any pink, and I also don't have any grease because we have used a really low fat meat here, so there's not going to be much grease. But if you were to have a whole lot of excess fat in your skillet, you want to make sure that you drain that. And to do that, you'll need a colander or a big spoon and a receptacle that you can put that grease into, because that will help cut down the fat, and it'll also make your pizza just a little bit crispier because you won't have all the grease. So I've got the hamburger browned now, and I'm going to put in 1 packet of taco seasoning. Taco seasoning can have a lot of salt in it, and as we all know, salt in excess is not a healthy thing. So if you can find them that says less sodium, no matter what percentage, try to keep that in mind when you're looking for your sauce, your seasonings. That could be true of just about any seasoning actually. The less salt, sometimes the better. So I'm going to pour that all in there, and then my package says, or my recipe says, that I need a 1/2 cup of water. So I'm going to take my cup over here, and am I going to measure it like this? No. When you measure liquid, you need to pour it out and set it down on a level surface, and I'm still high. Better to start low and pour out, or you can start low and add to. Doesn't matter which way you want to do it. But when you measure it out, you want the water to be right on the line of the amount that you need. So I'm good now with that. And I'm going to pour this in and stir it up. And it's really starting to smell like tacos. So as I mix this up, we're going to let this simmer a little bit. And while this is simmering, you will see that on a cookie sheet, I have started my little sun. So I'm going to put the fat side in so that I have area to put the hamburger when it's done cooking. And it doesn't have to be pretty, per se. You just have to make sure you fit it all together so that you've got a good area. Some people make it like a clock to start with. They do 12, 6, 3, and 9, and then fill in around that. I sometimes don't really stay between the lines, so I'm just going to kind of make my own little design here and make sure that I have it all patted together so it will hold the hamburger. Ooh. And I can tell from the sound of the hamburger that it's probably just about done. I'm going to take my spatula and kind of lay it around the edge here. And my big sun, which we need a lot of lately. And the next thing to come is that I'm going to put in this is probably one of the best things everybody loves is cheese. Nobody can have too much cheese. So as I'm scooping this in, the recipe calls for like 1.5 cups of cheese, but just so you know, you don't really have to measure it, and if you want more, that's fine. This is going to be a lot of cheese. Woo! Yeah, that's a lot of cheese. I think I'll stop. I'll never be able to fold it over. So now I'm going to fold everything over into the center here. This is another reason why you want to wash your hands, because you are touching food. And you're going to kind of tuck everything down in there so that it gets held inside this gorgeous little pizza ring here. And when you see it done, you'll see the center where you can add all the extra goodies. And we're going to bake this for about 20 minutes, 20 to 22 minutes. So when you have a recipe and it gives you the baking time, if it says, like this one says 20 to 22 minutes, you're going to set your timer for the minimum amount to start with. Because you can always cook it longer, but once you overcook it, it's not really as good. So we've got it all nice and tucked there. So I've set my timer. We're at 21:58. So we'll see what it looks like in 22 minutes. And during that time, and coming up now, will be Ann. And she's going to work on your fruit salsa and your cinnamon chips.
Well, welcome four-course living chefs. As Stephanie told you, the next thing we're going to make for our meal is a fruit salsa with cinnamon chip crisps. We served these for our Super Bowl party, and I will tell you, everybody really liked this dish, so I hope you do too. I've already washed my hands, and Steph reminded you that we always do that, and especially this dish because the fruit we're going to be working with is not getting cooked, so we want to have super clean hands for that. But we're going to begin first with our cinnamon chips, so let's look at the ingredients. Our recipe calls for 4 tortillas, and these are flour tortillas. I think if you had a gluten-free person, you could probably try it with corn tortillas. I've never done that, but you can experiment and see if it works. So we have our 4 flour tortillas. We're going to need 1/4 cup of sugar, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then a little bowl of water. Before we do all of this, we got our ingredients lined up. We want to be sure that we preheat our oven, and we've done that. It's set for 350 degrees, and when we're ready to put our chips in, it should be at that temperature. The first thing we're going to do is make our cinnamon sugar. And our sugar's gotten a little bit hard in there. Oh my, crumbs it out. Happens sometimes. Okay. There we go. Okay, and you want the sugar to be just nice and even with the top of the measuring cup. Add that to our bowl, and then 1 teaspoon of the cinnamon, and that is measured very much like the sugar. You want to make it even with the top of the measuring spoon. Plop that in. That is a cooking term, plop. And then we're going to mix it all up. And you can easily tell by the 2 different colors when it's mixed really well. Our sugar has a couple little lumps in it, so you can thump on those. Help and get that nice and even. Okay, now we are ready. So we're gonna just take our hand, get it damp, and rub that on the top of the tortilla chip. You don't want to get it soaking wet or it will get soggy, but you want it wet enough that when you take a spoonful of the cinnamon sugar, sprinkle it over it, that cinnamon sugar is going to stick. I have that a little bit heavy on there. It's interesting because usually when we bake, we talk about how important it is to have all the ingredients exact measurements. But this is an example of baking when you can be a little flexible depending on your tastes. We're going to just take our second tortilla, stack it right on top, make it nice and moist. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit. You may have a little shaker of cinnamon sugar in your home. Maybe you make cinnamon toast sometimes. So instead of having to use the spoon and trying to get your cinnamon sugar nice and even, you could put it in a little shaker bottle and it shakes nice and evenly all over that tortilla. It's a teeny bit faster. Okay, here comes flour tortilla number 3. Make it a little moist all over. We're gonna shake our cinnamon sugar on it. I wish you could be here and smell this cinnamon because it's pretty yummy, and when they start baking, it's really gonna smell good. And finally, we have our 4th tortilla. Okay. We have that nice and moist. Take our shaker, add it on. And then our next step, if you're looking at the recipe, is we're going to cut this flour tortilla in 8ths. For me, one of the easiest ways to do it is to use your pizza cutter. It's nice and safe because your hand is way away from the blade. It will actually go through all 4 of the tortillas. And we want to cut it in 8ths. So we're going to cut it in half. Sometimes I just turn my cutting board. Then I don't have to worry about moving my arm all over the place. Okay, and now you can see we have 4ths. And then we're going to cut each of those in half. And that will give us our 8ths. And of course, when you're doing this, you want to be sure that when you're holding the tortilla with your other hand, you want to keep it well away from the blade. Don't want to be running over your fingers with a pizza cutter. Okay, then we're just going to take, with the cinnamon side up, and put all of those chips on a baking sheet. Now you'll notice that our baking sheet today is covered with parchment paper. I like easy cleanup. I don't like to spend all my time cleaning up, but I do like to have things super clean. So if you put a piece of parchment paper on it, it will help make cleanup a lot easier for you. And you'll also notice that I didn't do a great job of cutting these in 8ths. Some of them are bigger than others, but that's okay. This is not an exact science. Okay. We want to get all these on, we would probably go get another baking sheet, but for right now, let's go with these. So you'll notice they're not overlapping each other. They're going to cook more evenly if there's a teeny bit of space in between them. We want to cook these for 10 minutes. I like to cook mine a little less than what the recipe says and then check on it just in case my oven's gotten a little too hot. So I'm going to set a timer on the oven for 8 minutes and we'll take a peek at them then and see if they're ready to come out. Okay, well while our cinnamon crisps are in the oven, we're going to work on our fruit salsa. And probably one of the most important things to know about the fruit salsa is you are not stuck with using just the fruits that are on here. For example, when I made it, I have somebody who doesn't like bananas, so we left out the bananas and we used apples instead. So you can mix and match. Let's look first at what all our ingredients are and make sure we have everything we need. So we need sugar, we need some nutmeg, a spice, we need cinnamon, another great spice, a little bit of lemon juice, and that will help some of our fruit from discoloring, so it stays looking nice and pretty. And today for our fruits, we have got strawberries. We're going to use mango, but we are actually going to use frozen mango. I wanted you to see what a real mango looks like and about how big they are, about as big as my hand, and they have a little bit of blush of red here. And when one is ripe, if you just give it a gentle squeeze, it kind of gives a little bite. This one's still a little bit hard. I probably would not cut this one yet. The reason that we like to use frozen mango is somebody else has done the rather dangerous work of cutting it. Once you cut into the mango, the fruit is really slippery, and if you're trying to work with a knife, it's very easy to cut yourself. So I recommend splurging and getting the frozen mango fruit. Okay, we also have a banana. You're probably all familiar with that. And a kiwi fruit. And kiwis are a little bit like mangoes. When you squish on it, if it just gives just a little bit, you don't want it to be super soft, but a little bit soft, then it's ready. And mangoes are also a little bit funny to peel. Some people don't peel them. Some people just eat it. But when you touch the skin, it's kind of fuzzy and a little bit rough. So there's a bit of an ick factor for some folks. So we're going to show you a real easy way to cut into that. But before we start, we want to start with a little sauce that we're going to put in our bowl. And that's going to sweeten the fruit a little bit. Now I'm going to make a confession. The sauce part is on the second page of your recipe. And when I made this for my family, I didn't turn the page over and look at this sauce. So our salsa only had the fruit in it. And I will tell you, it was delicious. So we saved a lot of extra sugar going into our bodies, and it was just as good. So you might want to try it like that before you use the sauce. But we're going to go ahead and do this like the recipe says. So we already measured out 1/4 cup of sugar, and if you want, we could even take a little bit out. You probably don't need that whole 1/4 cup. So we're going to put that in. And then it's asking us to do, I believe it's 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And we do that like we did the cinnamon. You want to just make it flat and even. Put that in there. I believe we used the technical term plop before, so we plopped that in. Our nutmeg. Cinnamon, we're going to put 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon in. Okay, same thing. You want to take a nice flat edge and flatten it to get the exact amount. Although, quite honestly, if you really like cinnamon and you want to put in a teeny bit more, it wouldn't hurt a thing. And then finally, we're going to put in our lemon juice. And if you're getting lemon juice in a bottle rather than fresh, you always want to shake it up a little bit before you measure it out. And we're going to put in 2 tablespoons. That's 2 of these spoonfuls. If you have a really complete set of measuring cups, 2 tablespoons is the same as 1/8 cup. So you could get out your little 1/8 cup measure and just put 1 of those in there, and it would be the same amount. Now, a little bit sticky looking, but if we mix this up nicely, that sugar is going to dissolve in there. So by the time we start putting our fruit into it, a little bit lumpy, the sugar is going to be dissolved in there, and I think it'll coat maybe the fruit a little bit better. All right, let's get all that's on the sides. Mix it all up. And we're just going to let that sit, and as we're cutting our fruit up, we're just going to add it in. Let's begin with the strawberries. Well, strawberries are one of the fruits that usually comes like this unless you're picking your own. We have washed these, so you'll want to rinse them off really, really well. And we've got a pretty slick way of taking the hull out of these. So you just take this little green part, pull it together, and pull the green part all the way off. And then if you have a nice fat straw, kind of hang onto the strawberry like this, and then the bottom of the straw, push it right over that little green part, and it usually, you can see, pushes that hull right out. Now it's stuck in my straw. That is not a problem. Let's try another one. So we take the green part off, put it right over the top of the green, push, okay, and pull it out. I'm kind of filling up my straw, but sometimes that little plug will actually come out the bottom and you can pull it right out. I'm going to try one more just to see if I can show you that it works like that sometimes. All right, we don't want all this green stuff in our salsa. Okay, here we go. There we go. See that funny little plug that came out of there? Okay, and again, we have a nice strawberry. Now, once in a while, what you're going to notice on this strawberry, for example, see that white part? Sometimes that's not very tasty. I like to trim those off a little bit. So take a paring knife very carefully, always cutting away from you. Hold it firmly and just cut that little white part off. And then this strawberry, one of them had, I noticed, kind of a dark spot on it. Right there, can you see that little dark spot? We're going to just slice that off because it's a little bit mushy. And then a little bit white on there. The recipe calls for 1 cup of strawberries. So we have our hulled strawberries and some that we took the hull out of earlier. Now that is way more than a cup, but there's a lot of airspace down in there, and I love strawberries. So this is what we're going to use for our strawberries, even though it's a little more than the recipe calls for. Now we have another fun little gizmo, a chopper. The chopper, you can see, has like zigzag blades in it. And instead of you having to take a knife and keep cutting and cutting this into small pieces, you can actually use this chopper. So just put your fruit inside it. Bump it up and down. And if you want big pieces, you do a few times. But we want rather small pieces because when you're going to use those chips to pick this up, you want to have pretty small pieces in there to get picked up. Let's do another. So those are fairly small. I could probably do 1 or 2 more chunks of it. Okay. You can see that the pieces on here, the second one that I did, they're still a little bit big. We're going to give them a little more cutting. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, and then you can take your nice flat straw, just scrape everybody into the bowl. And the strawberries gave us a little bit of moisture in there, so that's going to help make our salsa nice and juicy. Okay, next, after our strawberry, we have the kiwi. And you will have to cut the kiwi in half. So be careful. You can use your paring knife or a little bit larger knife for that. Okay. Make that bear claw. You just cut it all the way through. And aren't kiwis beautiful inside? Instead of trying to peel that, which is a little bit tough, we're just going to take a spoon, and you might have seen a little bit of juice drip out of this. I'm going to put that over our bowl. We're going to capture that juice because that would be pretty yummy inside our salsa. Oops, there we go. Other side, if you hold the spoon down here, it gives you a little bit better leverage on it. There we go. And just like we did the strawberry, we are going to chop up our kiwi. And you know what? We have more room, so let's go ahead and add our mango. And the recipe calls for a cup of mango. Okay, oh boy, that's just about everything we have left in our bag. That looks good to me. So we don't have quite a cup, but remember we put in some extra strawberries, so I think we're going to be just fine. And let's get enough. Always use your knife upside down and get everybody snuggled into our hand cutter, hand chopper. Woo, that was good. Okay, and let's do this last section. There's one piece that got a little bit off to the side, but I think the kiwi and the mango looks pretty good. I don't know, that kiwi's kind of small. If you had a second kiwi and you wanted to put that in there, that would be fine. Okay. Now we're going to put our mango in. And don't we have one more fruit to add? I think it's the banana. I'm guessing you guys have peeled lots of bananas. So we're just going to cut some chunks of banana. Then we're going to chop those with our hand chopper. Add them to our salsa. Mix it all up. And we have our salsa finished. I think I'm going to make this in 2 batches. Bananas are pretty soft. They probably don't need as much thumping up and down as the other fruits do. That looks good. Out there, and I'm going to give this guy 2 more. And I think we're good. Okay, we don't want to waste any of that good fruit, so we're going to scrape it out. And we're going to scrape our banana in. Boom. Boom. Okay, we still have our spoon in here. And look at that, we've only made 1 bowl dirty. And look at what a gorgeous, gorgeous color that is. I bet you can think of some other fruits you could substitute. So you might want to think about what's in season. For example, sometimes in the winter, it's hard to find good strawberries. So you could substitute something different. Just pick the fruits that you like best. And there is our salsa, ready when our chips are ready.
Okay, we're back. So Anne's got her salsa made and the chips made, and while she was doing that, our pizza baked. So remember me talking about some of the extra cheese that was left? I did go ahead and put it on top of the pizza ring after it came out of the oven, and you can see it's melted somewhat, but it doesn't have to be melted all the way. So now let's talk about some of the options that you can put inside this. You can get some chopped lettuce and put some in the middle of it. I have some chopped tomatoes here that would probably be really pretty if you wanted to make it even on top as a part of the decoration. Of course, a lot of people like sour cream. You could put sour cream in the middle. And then we always have salsa. We're not promoting brands here. This is just a jar we happen to have. So salsa is really good too. Some of the other things that you could add, because this is a very flexible recipe. If you like avocados and want to make some guacamole, then you can do that. Or if you want to add just plain avocado, black olives, if you like black olives, refried beans. I mean, this is something that can really be doctored up to meet your liking. I look forward to seeing you guys next month. It's good to be a part of this, and we really miss you. So we'll see you next time.
Well, our chips are nice and crisp. Came out of the oven, a little crunchy. You can make a pretty little platter like this. Actually, those are sort of Chiefs colors, aren't they? Anyway, and then people can just dip right in, or you could put a spoon in it so we don't have so many hands dipping into it, and they could spoon it onto their chips. Pretty good. So we got our beautiful taco sun over here and our fruit salsa with our cinnamon chips. We hope you'll try it and enjoy it a lot.